like a fist.
We should get drunk.
Sorry?
We should get drunk.
For Saturday mornings?
Yeah.
Then we have to work.
Barely.
I'm not getting a notification that you've gone live, though.
We're live.
Hey.
Ron, get on your microphone.
We
Once
are
again.
live.
All right, welcome back, TCS viewers.
Yeah. We bring it back with our usual professionalism.
It wouldn't be a live show without a few little problems at the start, but hopefully you guys can see us and hear us, and you'll let us know if everything's okay. But we have a fantastic live show for you today because we have a special guest, Monika Deviat. Monika, thank you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it is fantastic to have you out
Great
here.
to have you here.
We're also going to be talking about some mirrorless cameras today. We've got some cinema glass that we want to talk about. But as usual, just tell us your comments, questions, ask us stuff. Monika's here, fantastic photographer. And one of the few photographers I've seen that can handle many different genres of photography well. Like, most people specialize. Like, I just do portraits, I just do concert. But
exclusively train landscape. That's it. Yeah. No,
yeah, exactly.
We've got a wide variety
I
of
only
types.
take pictures of puddles. Everybody watches the show knows that. That's my thing.
Yep.
I hate it. It's not my thing. I want to stop that.
Totally your thing, though.
It's become my thing.
You just branch out.
Have
you decided how?
I'm trying, so that's why you're here.
Okay.
I'm going to ask
We're
you
moving on
questions
to larger and larger bodies of water.
How do I get? Yeah, I've done like a lake or two. Yeah.
He
Ocean?
panics
How much
anytime he gets close to the Bow River.
Yep.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
done rivers. I don't know if I can handle the ocean, but
Yeah.
anyways, we're gonna try. So I'm gonna have questions for you today. But first off, Monika, thanks for being here, and tell us how did you get started in photography?
I actually started doing concert photography. So my parents bought me a camera as a graduation gift.
What was that first camera?
A Nikon D90.
Oh, yeah, okay,
So-
classic. Yeah,
Yeah.
solid camera. Yeah.
It was okay. Not very good for concerts, but I upgraded pretty quick as soon as I realized that.
Yeah, not great in low light. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so, I mean, we have some photos here that we're going to look at today, and you were doing a lot of metal concerts. That's kind of how you got started. Was that just because you were in that scene, you like music, you were doing that kind of stuff, you thought, why not record it, why not take pictures?
Yeah, so I love heavy metal and love going to concerts, love the music, and my friends just asked me to take a few pictures for them and kind of got hooked and got better at it.
How it
and
starts.
yeah.
So did you
Definitely.
find fairly quickly that you moved from just shooting in the crowd to, did you wind up, doing some work for these bands, getting their official photos, things like that? How quickly did that process?
It actually went very quickly. So I was shooting in like small bars for local bands, and then a friend of mine started a webzine. It no longer exists, but it's called Pitch Black, and she hired me to shoot my first international bands, and so that was pretty cool. So
Very cool.
actually in the photo pit, not just like in a crowd. Sometimes I would have some protection from the crowd. Sometimes I'd still be in the crowd.
Well, and it's great too, like if you're looking to start, because it's a pretty technically demanding, like you need to know what you're doing, shooting live music in a lot of cases. The lights are constantly changing, it is low light, you really have to worry about, your settings, where if you want to go shoot animals in extremely bright light that aren't moving, that's an easier starting point for you. So is that something that you feel developed all the other aspects of your photography very early on? Because that's a challenging genre to start with.
Yeah, it is challenging. I probably stuck with that for almost 6 years before I really started branching out into anything else. I did some like portraits, I experimented with like some glamour shots and stuff like that. And then, in about 2014, I took my first night photo.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the thing. Like, you go from doing concert work, and I think a lot of photographers, they get into concert work, and that's what they do, right? Like, they just love it. They love chasing the bands. They love going on tour. They love following these things, working for magazines. But yeah, you started getting into weddings. Who hasn't shot weddings, right? I mean, everybody does like a wedding or two. Do you enjoy shooting weddings? You can be honest.
I have enjoyed shooting them, but I mean, I've been able to be selective because that's not my main thing, right? So I've shot some pretty cool ones.
But yeah, you're doing portraiture, you're doing this, and then you get into night photography. So, and that's another thing. I mean, night photography is, again, one of these genres that we find a lot of photographers kind of specialize in. They get out there and like, this is what I do. But tell us how that started.
So I was in the Okanagan on vacation, and I was looking for pictures online just for locations where to go to like shoot a sunrise or sunset. And there's this guy, Stephen Hancock, who had a ton of amazing Milky Way photos.
That's beautiful stuff.
Yeah. So I basically emailed him and was like, hey, take me out. And he told me, okay, sure. But I looked you up to make sure you weren't a weirdo, because that was very strange. So
Very cool.
it was amazing. I'd never really seen the Milky Way that bright. wasn't a very good picture. It wasn't fully in focus, but kind
Yeah,
of
like speaking of bad pictures,
you can point to that one.
not that one. That one's beautiful. Yeah, speaking of bad pictures, so yeah, I don't shoot this stuff. So I mean, this is kind of what I'm curious about because I never shoot this. Ron, are we okay? Everything's good? We're happy?
Jordan's fiddling.
Oh, okay. I've never done this kind of stuff. This is terrible. But we were in Oregon just doing the D850 kind of test, playing with that as a launch. And yeah, it gets dark there. We're out. There's nowhere else to be. People around, so I wasn't too scared to be out there shooting in the dark. And yeah, it was fun. It was fascinating to just kind of do it and shoot it. It's something I've never done before. And I think what was really amazing is not just that it's a different kind of photography, but the whole atmosphere is different, right? Out in the dark, just flashlights, everything quiet. Yeah, it was quite calming. It was quite serene. It was a really neat experience.
Yeah, I think that's something I really love about landscape photography and things like that is it's a very deliberate kind of photography. But when you're doing night photography, it's completely different because you're not seeing what your eyes see. It's kind of a cool experience, kind of like shooting film where you push it, you hang on, you wait, and then you're like, oh, did I nail it? And a lot of times, too, the post-processing is so important that it's not till you get back and
Let's go to some nice photographs now.
We'll get away from the Chris
that
photographs.
aren't mine, yeah. And again, you know, that was pretty basic. Like, we're up on a hillside. It was us and some other photographers. But yeah, it's neat, you know, just yelling out to each other and whatnot. Coyotes all around, like howling and yipping. So for this, I guess it's the same kind of, like, in a lot of your photographs here, you're doing these beautiful, epic, wide night photography shots. And you've got city sites and things like that. I mean, obviously it looks like you're getting up into the mountains to do this kind of stuff too. So tell us about your whole kind of process shooting night photography.
In terms of planning?
Well, because here's the thing. Like, for us, we took a car up a hill. It wasn't a very big hill. We walked like 20 feet. We shot this stuff. We got back in the nice warm car, and it drove us back down to the beautiful ranch. So this looks a little bit different.
Yeah,
a little more demanding.
A car won't take you up there. So this particular one that we're looking at is from Mount Temple. So we're up 11,000 feet.
Jeez.
So that was quite a long hike with all the photography gear, and at that time I was hauling my D3S around, which is really heavy.
Absolutely.
Not ideal for that, but it makes really good shots.
So, like, what if you're going on a typical night excursion, what time of day are you starting? Like, everything's packed, like, driving out, obviously mountains are good, hour and a half, sometimes a few hours away, depending where you're going. So what is that kind of process like, and then how late are you staying out?
So if I'm going on, like, say, a car adventure, so basically where I can drive and walk somewhere within a few minutes, like your Dinosaur Provincial Park.
Right.
You know, you just have to take into account the drive. I'll walk around in the dark, no problem. The time of the year also dictates what time you want to be out to see the Milky Way core.
Okay.
So in the spring, for example, I'd be out at 3 a.m., but in the fall, I'd be out as soon as it's dark.
So right now, and you were kind of saying, we were talking about earlier, you're saying like right now is kind of the end of the season.
Yeah.
Kind of a spring to fall is sort of your sweet spot?
Yes, especially for our latitude. So the core, that like super detailed spot that we like to shoot, is only visible above the horizon between March and October, roughly. So.
Well, that's perfect because this kind of stuff is completely unlivable after October in Canada, so that works out very well for everybody.
Well, I still go out in -30 in the dark. It's
So
just
yeah, like
different subjects.
How does that change things then? If you're shooting the winter time, obviously it gets darker sooner.
Yeah.
Is there a change in atmospherics? Is there a change in what you do shoot or choose to look at? I mean, do you move to star trails or something? What do you usually do?
So I'll do more star trails in the winter. Aurora, your chances are a little bit better because you've got more hours of darkness.
Right.
Just like nightscapes, just stars. Snow looks really pretty under starlight. So yeah.
So for researching this kind of stuff, of course you've been doing it for a while, but if some of our viewers are like, I've decided that I'm going to go create one of these this weekend, good luck. But
3 a.m.
But what would you recommend for them planning that? Are there some great resources they can check out to find out where they are, what they can look for if they wanted to get into night photography like this?
Well, there's lots of apps you can use and programs. So I use an app called PhotoPills, which has a feature on it that shows you the position of the Milky Way through time. So you can look at current, wherever you are, or you can say, well, show me what it'll look like a month from now. So that can help you set up your compositions. Like, for example, this one, the Milky Way kind of follows the line of the roof of the barn perfectly.
Right.
So, you know, you go a couple months later, it's not going to do that.
Right.
And
So yeah, and there's the thing too. I mean, if you're hiking up mountains, you're kind of limited in where you can and cannot move, right? It's a lot of work to get out there, I'm assuming, right? How do you plan these shots? Because this is one of the amazing things, and I think a lot of landscape photographers, especially here, we kind of feel like, oh, I can just drive out to the mountains, doesn't matter, I'll find something, there's the classic shots. But time of year really matters. Position of the stars changes, right? As you're saying, where the Milky Way is going to show up. How do you figure out where you want to be, when you want to be, like yourself? There's a lot of scouting earlier, like are you out in the summertime and you're like, this is going to be awesome maybe come October, or this is going to be awesome next spring, or do you just kind of...
Sometimes I scout. I've gone to a lot of places in the dark for the first time, which I don't fully recommend because it's a little bit scary.
Yeah,
so you're like,
okay, there you go. So
what is
that's the
actually
answer,
out
just
here?
wander in
But-
the dark by yourself, okay.
Yeah, when we were on our Nikon trip, they were like, it's dark and there's cliffs, so be aware.
Yeah. Be aware,
don't
yeah.
fall off, so sometimes I do scout, like if I go on a hike during the daytime with friends, maybe I'll be like, oh, this could be a cool spot. Or sometimes I'll look at trip reports from other people, use Google Earth to figure out angles and what I could see from a certain peak or something, so yeah.
Very cool.
Ron's making
We-
faces
we-
there.
Yeah,
Questions,
I
please.
make lots of faces. But we've got a
That's-
question for Monika. What cameras are you currently using?
So I still have my D3S, and I got a Nikon D810 like 2 months ago.
All right.
And how are you finding that as a change now?
I'm still comparing them and deciding how I feel about the D810. Like, I really love the images that came out of my D3S.
Right.
The D810, you've got way more megapixels on it, so you do kind of see more noise in the shots. And I've noticed a magenta hue around the edges, which I'm not a huge fan of.
Right.
But like the images are coming out pretty cool. We do have some. If you
Now, that's
scroll
interesting 'cause
through.
I'll
Yeah,
settle
like-
down here. It's probably in chronologically.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, beautiful.
Not this one. Yeah, this is one with the D810. Yeah,
Okay.
from Bow Lake when the Aurora photobombed me. And also, this adventure caused me to not show up for the segment 2 weeks ago.
Oh, this was
This
yeah,
is
yeah.
when
2
you
weeks
were-
ago we went
yeah.
on Monica on, but you weren't able to make it. And that's funny because you were out there, you were camping, doing these shots, and then you call us and you're like a truck jackknifed on the highway. I can't get back. The whole highway's shut down. I mean, this stuff happens, right?
Yeah, well, that's the first time I've ever had anything like that happen. And I was like, oh, I can't actually get back home.
Well, as you can see, these schedules quite flexible.
Yes,
So
exactly,
this
yeah,
morning
we're-
is a perfect day.
We're
so thank you
fine.
for giving me another chance.
It's interesting you mention that because just a side note, the D810 and then the D850 that we took out, we were noticing that when we looked at high ISO performance, the D810 does seem to have a slight pink tone to it, and the D850 does get rid of that. So yeah, I know you just have it for 2 months, but I think maybe we'll just get you into D850 instead.
You're going to get me one?
Maybe Nikon will get you one.
I mean, the way the wait lists are
Nikon,
looking
yeah.
right now.
Yay, Nikon.
Yes, bring this
There's-
person D850. I mean, yeah, absolutely, because we didn't see any magenta cast. It was really, really nice to use.
Yeah, it seems like they've finessed that a little bit. Are there any people's work that really, when you were first getting going, you were looking at? Of course, like you went out with another photographer
Yeah.
who showed you the ropes initially, but are there any people outside of Alberta that you look at and you're like, I want to get closer to that, or I can take a little bit from this?
When I started, I'd say no, and that's just because, I don't know, I guess sometimes I feel like I live in a box when it comes to photography. I don't always look at what other people are doing.
Right.
Right.
Part of that's because I'm busy doing so many other different things that I'm like, oh wait, what's going on?
Yeah, Monica does exactly 46 things as a career, so yeah, it's tough to follow.
Like
other
many
people.
photographers.
Yeah, like many. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Most photographers here, though, were paper routes or delivering baked goods or whatever we can to make money.
But no, there are a couple that I've kind of that I follow, like on Instagram or other social media. Yuri Bilinski, he's actually works in Chile, so he's got super dark skies. His images are really
Right,
cool.
right.
Met up with Paul Ziska and like looked at
Yeah.
some of
I would
his
say
work.
Paul. Yeah, I
We
mean,
know
Paul's
Paul
very,
quite
very
well.
popular in the
Yeah.
Banff area. Yeah, and he does a lot of stuff too.
There's another girl in the States, Tracy Lee. She gets out a lot for some hikes there.
I can see that being fascinating. I mean, I'm assuming most of your stuff is out here in the Rocky Mountains,
Yeah.
here at home. So it must be interesting to see, like, for example, photographers in Chile and stuff, totally different skies, different star patterns,
Yeah.
different latitude, longitude.
Yeah.
So that all affects your position. Of course, different topography.
Yeah, different compositions with Milky Way. So further south, you'll actually see the core more overhead, whereas we see it just above the horizon.
Yeah,
so.
right.
And what are you typically looking for when you go out, like if you're scouting in the day or something like that? For some of our viewers, again, who might want to get in this, is it a place where you're like, this is a great landscape location, let's see what happens when I come back at night? Or are you looking specifically for if this area is going to work at night when you go out?
I probably always look at places thinking, will it work at night? Because that's what I love to do.
But now you do shoot landscapes during the day too,
But
right?
I do, yeah. Just, I'd say I prioritize going out at night more, so I'm probably sleeping during the day.
Oh, there you go. So you just have to become like a graveyard shift.
Yeah.
There you go, for sure. And a lot of wandering in dangerous places at night in the dark.
But I like to pretend I'm the most dangerous thing in the dark, so then it's okay, right?
Perfect.
Yeah.
It's all perception.
Ron, any of your questions there?
Yeah.
I know already.
So, we've got Pranav wondering, any advice for amateurs who are beginning with Nightscape?
Well, practice, get out a lot.
Haha, take that. All the practice.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, for like gear and stuff, work with what you got. If you like it, start upgrading because it does make a difference in night photography.
I noticed on your Instagram channel you're just testing the new Sigma 14 mil,
Yeah,
which
I
I'm
tried
very
that out.
curious
Right.
about,
Yeah.
which we wish we had when we were on the Nikon trip. Like, Nikon, can you grab us a Sigma lens? And they were like, no, but
Yeah, I took the 20 mil 1.8 out, and it was all right. But I mean, yeah, maybe nice to have something wider. When you were starting out, have you tried the Rokinons? Because I know
Yeah.
it's very popular. They'd be like, oh, it's like $500. You can get something that goes wide and fast.
So that was my first like astro lens, the
Okay.
Rokinon 14 millimeter.
yeah, a lot of
2.8,
people are using that.
Yeah, but it wasn't very useful for anything else. And because I shoot concerts and stuff, I ended up with the 14 to 24 Nikon,
Gotcha.
the 2.8. Yeah, so then I could actually use it more than just for astro.
So do people need the like bright wide apertures, like the 1.4 lenses? Like, is that something you feel that is that important?
It helps, and especially say if your camera maybe doesn't handle the high ISOs as well, you could just upgrade your lens first.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I'd say with gear and stuff, it's always a bit of give and take. How much do you want to spend? Do you want to spend more on your lenses? Do you want to spend more on your camera? Do you want to have more versatile lenses?
But if someone has like a 2.8 lens, 20 mil or something, they can still go get
oh
some
yeah,
nice
you can
shots,
still
eh?
get something good. Yeah.
Yep.
What tips do you have to nail manual focus in the dark?
Oh, I usually use the live view method. So just set your camera to the live view, try and find a really bright star, and then zoom in on it on the live view and focus manually.
Sweet.
One thing I will really mention that we see all the time is people like, oh, I threw my lens at the infinity mark and I took pictures and every shot is totally out of focus.
Doesn't
Yeah,
quite
'cause
work.
it's always off, yeah.
Yeah, it depending on how the lens was designed, your ambient temperature, that will shift. So it's a good ballpark for you. But yeah, you'll still want to kick into the live view. Magnify, magnify, magnify.
Yeah, I found on that lens I was using, I was significantly closer than infinity. Like, I'm turning, I'm like, this is too far. But at infinity, my stars were just big circles. Yeah.
Yeah, big balls
And,
of mush.
actually, one more tip on that, because sometimes, especially at 14 millimeter, your stars are really hard to find on your live view.
Right.
So I'll actually just turn my camera away from what I'm composing even and just find the brightest one I can.
Oh, that makes sense
Focus
because
on that and then
distance is
recompose,
distance at
yeah.
that point.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're
that's a
not
good tip.
like, that's really more like 15 light years.
That's a good tip.
Let's see. Are your nightscapes typically single shots or composites with one exposure for the sky and one for the foreground?
Oh.
Don't give your secrets away.
No, give all your secrets
Give
away.
all your
Really
secrets
appreciate
away.
it. And yeah, Monica will tell you where all these locations are and
Yep.
exactly where to
Yeah.
go to, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
All the camera settings that you need, time of day.
Yeah.
It depends. I think there's a good mix. Like, can they see the one that's on screen now? That one's definitely a
When
composite.
Ron pushes the button, they will see the one on screen.
Yeah, so this one's definitely a composite because it's got the Perseid meteor shower in it. So
Oh,
a bunch
okay.
of them stacked. I lit up the barn separately, picked a different shot for the sky. But some of the mountain ones are just single exposures.
You just demystified this for me. Thanks.
And what do you like to use when you are filling in light? Like, do you just use a flashlight? Do you have an LED light you like to use?
Yeah, I have an LED panel.
Which one do you use?
The Z90 something.
Oh, a Xylight maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe a Xylight.
All right.
It was
Sorry.
funny when we were out, Chris really wanted to throw some warm light on his subject, and all he had was his cell phone with him, so he wound up just sticking it on his finger and using the blood from
red,
his hand.
yeah, and it worked. I mean, we got that sort of red-green
Yeah.
split. How often are you lighting up things like the foreground, grass, rocks?
If there's buildings, I'll usually try and light them up. Can we scroll to a different one?
Yeah. Oh, let's go up.
Yeah. Oh, go back.
Buildings.
Or this
Like-
one's
Oh,
good.
Yeah, like
we're
something
going
like
through all the
that.
catalog.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
So this particular one, even just for the foreground, I think that might be 3 or 4 shots because I'm the person in all the windows and doorways.
Oh, cool.
Very cool.
And so I had to also light up the barn, and I think I did 2 shots from that because I only have 1 light, and I lit it up from both sides.
All different angles.
Yeah.
Oh, very, very cool.
Have you printed much of your work?
Yeah, I do a lot of it on metal actually because it looks really
I can
cool.
see that.
with
Well,
night
and
stuff.
something like this, I mean, it makes perfect sense to let your eye wander around the frame. Because initially, when I was skimming through, of course, the star trails caught my eye, things like that. But then, yeah, look into it a little more. You see the figures in the windows,
So
and
you-
I can see that really working on a large print.
So you definitely have to, I mean, supplementary light source, very, very important if you're going to do this kind of stuff. I mean, otherwise, are you just going to be dealing with silhouettes for the most part?
Here would have been a silhouette, yes, unless you have some moonlight maybe, or you do a separate exposure for your foreground.
Oh, okay, so that's the other option, is kind of multiple composites. Cool, 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 cool.
Anything else coming in?
Yeah. Let's see. What kind of gear do you usually pack for your night photography?
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. Like, how much stuff are you actually carrying up with you to do this kind of stuff?
Well, if I'm just going, again, like a car trip, tripods, I'll probably take like all my cameras and all my lenses just because I'll probably stay for sunrise.
Right.
If I'm going up a mountain, I start getting selective because I also have to carry everything to keep me warm.
Right, food, water,
food,
everything.
Yeah, some hot tea, hand warmers. Take a bunch of those, even
Very
for your
good idea.
camera.
Are
yeah.
you often like going with friends or by yourself a lot of the time? Is it a solitary kind of experience to do this kind of
A
stuff?
For
monkish
me, I-
lifestyle.
Probably do it alone a lot more than most people.
Are your friends, I guess, want to go to bed? Like,
It is hard to find
just
people
like,
that will like.
if
go
you're
up a
still
mountain
alive in the
dark.
morning, give us a call, Monica. Let us know you're okay. But otherwise,
Yeah.
good luck. Yeah.
Pretty much, I have to just send the not dead text to my parents and stuff. Because I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go sleep on this mountain. They're like, what? I'm like, I'll
Oh.
talk
Yeah.
to you tomorrow.
Wait, baby, wait. Oh, okay. I hope she's okay.
Yeah, signal lost.
Do you have any stories, like any close calls? I mean, it is exciting stuff. One of the cool things was you're out in the dark. It is kind of eerie. It's beautiful. It's like, as I said, I felt it was quite serene. It was quite calm.
Yeah.
You know, there's a really nice atmosphere, and you do feel kind of just alone, and it's a nice solitary thing. But have you had any close calls or any sort of like?
No, in the mountains, I generally feel pretty safe. I mean, you need to know what you're doing. Obviously,
Yeah,
you
like
carry
scrambling
my-
up mountains in the daytime is dangerous enough. I mean, there are
Yeah.
risks, yeah.
Yeah.
And as a photographer, I'm sure you want to push yourself to get the right angles and interesting silhouettes and stuff.
To a certain extent.
Yeah?
I try and be smart about it, but yeah.
No dangerous animals,
Depends.
nothing like that.
I've never seen like
No
a bear in the
rattlesnakes.
wildlife. No, like just I've seen bears from the road, but not while hiking ever.
There you go.
Which is probably a good sign because it means I'm being loud enough that they're like, oh, human,
Alberta
run
is the
away.
safest place in the world for
Yeah.
all your night photography.
There you
heard
go.
it here.
Yeah. More likely to get mauled at 3 in the afternoon than 3 in the morning. So there you go.
Actually, on one like rural adventure, I was out with a friend and we were just driving down some roads, and I saw a really cool like tree silhouette, and I was like, oh, let's pull over and check it out. And we get out of the car and we hear gunshots, and I was like, get back in the car. So we realized it was Friday night near Vulcan, and we were like, it's probably people drinking and shooting at deer.
Which is probably
That-
not good.
that might have been
Like
correct.
something moved
Yeah.
in the field. Let's
We
say,
were like,
yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
let's leave.
throwing a tripod over your shoulder could make you look suspiciously like a deer.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
probably
exactly.
best to
No antler-shaped tripods. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of freaky.
Walk around with your
Drove
LED
away.
panel on. Yeah. Yeah, geez. Okay, there. So there you go. Again, man, always the dangerous prey.
Yeah. Pray.
Predator.
Predator.
Have you done
Drink
any?
some coffee.
Oh, good God. Have you done any light painting while doing your nightscape stuff? Like getting a little bit more creative than, say, the barn shot or what have you?
Well, I see
Oh.
you did have like
Yeah.
some long exposure stuff.
Oh, there was. Yeah, it's in here actually.
I'll shuttle
Hey,
through.
That
there
one.
we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
This would answer Esif's question.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it on screen.
Okay.
Right now.
Yeah,
There we
so
go.
this one's actually a single exposure. I put my LED in the whatever building that's all like collapsed.
All
So
right.
it's slightly lit up. And then I basically had this little camp light that I taped to a stick. And I spun it in a circle and then jammed it into the ground because I couldn't turn it off.
All right, just and it lit up the
Yeah.
in front of the.
I attempted to draw a pentagram a few times, but it looked like a 5-year-old drew it, so I scrapped that.
There you go. Drawing classes.
Yeah.
That's a good tip.
Metal
Take drawing
light
classes.
painting
Yeah.
pentagrams with starry back. Oh, jeez.
So it's a safe bet you're usually the silhouetted figure in
Yeah.
a lot of these?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's usually me.
Yeah.
Here's a question, because
behind the
yeah,
curtain.
a lot of this stuff is real, and you're talking about potentially getting shot at and stuff like that too. So when you are driving around in these rural areas, like, do you meet up with ranchers and farmers? Do you ask for permission, or are you just like, F it, we're jumping over this fence, let's go do this?
If I can, I'll try and figure out and ask permission.
I mean, it's
or-
weird getting a knock on the door at like 3 in the
Yeah.
morning. Like,
Yeah.
hey, do you mind if I
so
traipse
that would be
around
like
You
a,
got a really good
ahead of
tree
time
back there.
thing.
Yeah.
Showing up with cameras. Hey, how's it going?
Take a picture of your old barn over there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, like if there's no trespassing signs, I definitely like will follow those.
Yeah.
I've shot like from right up to a fence. and stuff,
Right,
But,
exactly, from the
yeah.
highway.
It depends on the situation. So yeah.
Very cool.
Very cool. One other thing I do want to mention is, of course, we're talking about some tips and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But Monika is running a night photography seminar that's coming up. Is it next weekend? Or?
It's on Thursday.
Thursday.
Robot,
So there is
get
still,
that link up
there is
there.
still time. So if you are local and want to check that out, $50, totally reasonable.
Absolutely. What kind of stuff are you going to be covering here, Monika? Just a brief kind of overview.
Some of the stuff we talked about today, but way more detail, like camera settings, gear, talking about how to compose as well, safety issues. Yeah, just as it'll be a ton of info.
I mean, it sounds like this is a kind of photography that is quite technical. I mean, you have to know your camera, you have to know how it's performing. Yeah, you got to be safe. You have to know time of day. You have to know conditions. I mean, it's a neat photography. It's not just showing up with your camera, right?
No.
I mean, there's a lot of planning.
Yep.
There's a lot of forethought into it. So yeah, no, this would be an excellent opportunity to learn some stuff.
Yeah, and there are some technical necessities when you're doing
Yes.
this. Like there are some things that you have to do properly, and it's great to learn those initial starting points so that you can use those and then start getting creative on top of it.
Exactly.
But with night photography, you really need that foundation before you can go and create some compelling images.
Is every night photograph that you take like a surprise in a good way? Is that kind of part of the magic? Do you kind of know what you're going to get? I mean, we're seeing some amazing shots where an aurora just happens to
Yeah.
pop out. I mean, you can't really control that stuff, right?
So sometimes I'll go out specifically for aurora because I track the data. I'm learning how to read it and predict it and stuff. But sometimes I've gone out for a Milky Way shoot, and I think the last time I went out was in May, and there was like a G3 storm. I couldn't shoot the Milky Way because it's so bright, and I was just like, well, I guess we're shooting aurora.
Right. Yeah, like
Shoot.
you have to change your plans, right? Where you get out and clouds come overhead and everything.
Yeah, that's happened a few times. That's really annoying.
One thing I was curious about, have you dabbled with time-lapse very much?
I've done a few actually. I included one in the link. I don't know if you guys can play it.
Oh.
We'll see. We'll see how quick Jordan can
Okay.
figure it
Yeah.
out.
But yeah.
Quickly talk about things.
I've shot a few more this year. I haven't finished processing them because I'm really behind on all my processing.
That does happen.
Had lots of adventures this year.
Timelapse can take a long time.
Yeah.
Are there any places you want to travel to get night photography specifically? I mean,
Yeah, I want to go to
Utah.
Chile.
Oh, Chile? Yeah.
Utah as well, but
Hey, Jordan,
it's
am I
pretty
supposed to have
popular
your
and busy.
email up?
Yeah.
Nope,
I
nope.
like my
Make that not be
solitary
there.
adventures.
Any sort of secret places in the area that you've kind of discovered that we won't get you to reveal them, but I mean, is that part of it? Is it kind of trying to find your own unique locations, or do locations that you would shoot during the day work at night as well, or is it kind of two different things?
Some of them do. Again, I'm always looking to see
Right.
what will work at night. But yeah, I really like to come up with something unique. I like to find new spots. And if I do go somewhere that's popular, like Vermilion Lakes in Banff, I try and do something different with it.
Right.
That's always my goal. Like it's going to be my image.
Very cool. Any other questions, Ron?
Yes, can you provide the people with YouTube with all the geotagging information of all the shots that are really, really popular of yours?
Of mine?
Yeah, of yours.
Does
Is
it
that
have to be-
included?
does it have to be
all of
correct?
them, yes.
Can I
All
encrypt
We're only
it?
giving those away
Nope.
if you take
Ron,
the class.
Ron, stop trying to get all the secret info. Yeah, exactly. No one's asking, just
I
Ron.
don't shoot night stuff. I shoot embarrassing portraits.
Unfortunately, I don't have the
the time-lapse? Okay.
stuff. But this is the great thing
Wow.
about this is I'll throw the link up. If you check back later on the live show, I'll have it pinned to the top of it, so you can take a look at some of those.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Robot doesn't have.
Or if Robot's got them.
No, Robot doesn't have it.
Okay, great.
It's okay. We'll figure it out. We'll get it posted up on there.
Hey, there's a question. Okay, do you find more remote places tend to have better foreground interest, or can side of the road be good too?
I'd say more remote places, maybe you'd have the darker skies because you're getting away from the city lights. But a few of my favorite shots I've shot from like 5 minutes from the road.
Yeah, you just have to be very
Oh,
careful on
Jesus.
if it's earlier on, because even like a headlight can completely louse
Yeah,
everything up. So
that's true.
you do want to put some distance between you and
Yeah,
people.
probably don't shoot right on the road.
Yeah.
Some people do that, but that scares me, actually. That's one thing that does scare me.
My mic is hanging out. I'm sorry. It's very embarrassing. I apologize for
You're-
my mic
you're
hanging out
digging
in front
in
of
your
everybody.
shirt?
I'm sorry. Yeah. How important is it to get, like, okay, first off, this is beautiful. We saw this early on. So tell us, what is creating that light?
So that's Emerald Lake Lodge.
Okay.
So there's a wedding happening that night. It was really bright.
Very cool.
Some strobes, probably brighter than it would be on like a regular night. But it was also really foggy, so that created those really weird like rays and
Absolutely
mist. And,
beautiful.
yeah. it was
So,
pretty cool.
so then leading from that, how important is it to get away from the city, like from big
Yeah.
cities? Or can you do interesting night photography in the city? Or is it just too
Well-
bright to see Milky Way stuff?
Usually it's too bright to see the Milky Way, like
Yeah.
especially in Calgary. We've seen aurora in Calgary a few times.
Absolutely.
That gets bright enough. But definitely from Calgary, I'd say as long as you get about 30 minutes away, going like south, east, west. You'll see
Okay.
it.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool.
Awesome. Anything else there, Ron?
That's his thing.
That's
He does
his-
the-
what
yeah.
I do. I say
like-
a lot, so here it's
It's
on
basically
key.
our theme
He
song
doesn't
for the
say
live
it,
show.
He
Is
hums
that?
it.
Yeah.
He sings it. It's his thing.
Favorite place you've ever shot? Everywhere.
Oh god.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Are there any
'Kay.
places you'd love to get to that you've
Actually-
seen somewhere?
We talked about
we
that,
got
yeah.
something. She's got
Sorry,
an idea.
that might
Shut
have been what I
up.
was looking.
Probably Assiniboine. I went there for my 30th birthday, and I got an amazing aurora and Milky Way like panorama. It's beautiful.
I mean, that's a question too. Like, is it a favorite place? Do you look at it as like, oh, this is where I know I can get a good shot, or is it really more like that's where I had an amazing experience?
It's definitely the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it's so variable, right? So
Yeah.
if you get something really amazing, it's almost like, wow, like that was a really special thing, not necessarily repeatable.
Yeah, no, like the Emerald Lake one, probably no one else will get that shot
Yeah.
unless those conditions roll through again somehow. But obviously, like if you're shooting the Milky Way from Vermilion Lakes, everyone can get the same reflection shot. It's,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What can you do with it?
Very cool.
Challenge accepted. So Jordan Robot wants to know what we wanted to post. The link.
Oh, well, I'll put up some time lapse. images.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't worry, we'll get
okay.
a time lapse up just so you
Yeah.
guys can see it afterwards.
Thank
yeah,
you.
after the fact.
Let's see.
And we
Have
are
you-
go ahead.
Oh,
More questions?
No, that's good.
yeah, one for you. Have you ever used a motorized star tracker?
No, I would really like to get one though. It was kind of on my list for this year, but then I bought a camera and some other stuff. So yeah.
And now you have to buy a D850, so that's
Yeah,
Yeah,
pushing
yeah.
back a little bit.
You
43
just
bucks.
throw your cameras out into traffic. Have Nikon send you a D850. Be done with.
Nikon, please send me a D850.
Hey, there you go.
There you
That's
go. Nikon, please send me
pandering.
50.
That's
Yes.
how we do it here.
Yeah. You just gotta ask.
Yeah.
Sometimes that works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Sometimes it really doesn't.
All right.
Okay,
Paddle-
so
paddle on.
we're going to be talking about mirrorless cameras here in a bit. You're using Nikon. It sounds like you've used Nikon since the very beginning.
Yeah.
Have you looked at the mirrorless cameras? Have you kind of considered that? Obviously, carrying a little bit less would probably be a nice thing, right, Monica?
So I have thought about it definitely because of the size, the weight, and I do know a bunch of my friends have them, people that I shoot with.
Right.
I like having my cameras better. Partly weatherproofing.
Okay.
The batteries last.
Yes.
I know my one friend Becky. She has to take a charger up with her if for her camera because the batteries won't last through the
The
night.
mirrorless cameras, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's hopefully changing, but they are
yeah,
still going to
we'll
be more
see.
battery dependent. And you're leaving your camera on for long periods of time when you're
Yeah.
doing these kind of things, right? Yeah.
And the Nikons are pretty rugged. I've dropped my D3S like full on twice, and it's fine.
We've never done that to Nikon cameras,
We've never damaged an Nikon
Not on
camera.
purpose, but it's happened.
except maybe we have done it on
On
purpose.
purpose. Yeah.
One other thing I think is worth pointing out while we're on that subject is the mirrorless cameras, they're still trying to flesh out their lens lines in a lot of cases. There's not, like we mentioned, the 14mm 1.8 from Sigma, there's really no equivalent to that that's designed natively for mirrorless cameras right now. So I'm sure over time we're going to see more options, but this is still considered, a less mainstream type of photography, so the lenses aren't there yet in a lot of mirrorless systems, and that's going to be something I'm sure we'll see come over time, but we're still a little ways out.
Very cool. Any other questions, Ron?
Yeah. How do you choose your color balance for night pictures? I see some pictures with warm tones and some with the cooler side of the spectrum.
Yeah, so when I'm shooting, I'll usually set my temperature to, I think it's 3,500, just so I have a
Okay.
rough idea when I'm looking back at the camera what it'll turn out to. But it does depend on kind of if there's ambient lighting. There can be air glow in the sky, so a lot of green. So it's just
Okay.
like particles that are getting excited in the atmosphere. Aurora can kind of change the overall look of the picture. Like, for example, especially if it kind of light paints the mountains. Like, I've had pictures turn out really green. I usually try and go for more natural, so the sky shouldn't be fully blue. It should be kind of more like blackish.
Yeah, I did notice like a lot of temptation just to be like, let's go crazy with the color and see what happens. And it's astral, so you can do whatever. But that's not really the case, hey? Like,
No, like I guess it always comes down to personal preference. Me, I prefer natural colors,
a little bit more
whatever is
realistic
there.
looking, right?
Yeah, and then if you're shooting closer to like sunset or sunrise hours, you will get more blue in the sky. So maybe you'll leave that. But yeah,
How long of an exposure does it take to get a full star trail?
Ooh. I think the longest one I've ever shot was 2 hours.
Good.
But like, I think if you want the full concentric circles, probably need about 4 hours.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah. So it depends on how much time you have. And
I just
battery.
learned something, and so did
I
they.
mean, I figured out if you do longer than 20 seconds, you do start to see your stars become little kidney
Yeah.
beans. I kind of noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of like just getting sharp stars for a single exposure, like a Milky Way shot, depends on your focal length, and yeah, how
And
particular you are about.
Do you
should they be a
typically aim
point.
for like 10 seconds, 15 seconds? Or
most
I know it
of-
depends on how much
yeah.
light you have and stuff, but
If I'm shooting 14 millimeter, I think I usually stick to about 25 seconds. So I'm just under the what they call the 500 rule,
okay.
which you take 500 divided by your divided by your focal length, and that gives you your time for
Sort of maximum
yeah.
seconds you should use.
But I usually bring it back down.
The good news is there are apps out there that'll help you with that process.
Yeah.
So-
Thank
Photo
God.
pills.
For the viewers at home, I mean, you have to crank your ISO at times. Like there will be times where you just have to crank it up.
Most of mine I shot at 6400.
Okay, yeah. So you are
Yeah.
pushing up pretty high. So a camera with good low light performance is
It
definitely
helps,
paramount.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's
And-
one of the reasons that people are looking for ultra wide lenses when they're doing this kind of photography is
Yeah.
it means you can dial back your ISO
Yeah,
a little bit
get
because
some
you're
more
not
light.
getting as much streaking in the sky with those longer exposures.
While we're on the topic of ISO, what ISO would you use to shoot the Milky Way?
Oh, so well, my cameras do pretty well at 6400. I've shot it with 1600 for no reason other than I didn't really know what I was doing and just messing around and got something reasonable.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll shoot anywhere in between that range just because of what else might be happening in the sky. Like aurora could be overblown at that ISO,
Right.
but yeah,
Well, and it all depends on how bright a lens you've got as well.
that too. Yeah.
Very cool.
Keep going.
Cool.
Oh, geez, why are you all looking at me?
Is there another question?
No.
We're
No,
putting
I
you
think
on
we're
the spot.
good. No, I think we're good. And I think, yeah, let's see.
No, Chris just got here, he says, and he says, Nikon, what lens? Lots.
I'm sorry about my mic. I'm
Is
sorry.
the answer.
I'm sorry. Ignore
All
this.
lenses.
Lots. All
All right.
lenses. All focal lengths.
Thank you, Jordan.
Bring gaffer tape.
Bring gaff tape.
Yeah, actually bring tape with you when you go out. That's
Yeah,
a
there
good
you
one,
go.
Actually.
Yeah, there you go.
All right,
I've
cool.
had to rig some things, and one of my friends once forgot her tripod plate thing to attach her camera. So
She's
we
just gaff tape it on.
We've never done that on TCSTV ever before.
Well, and it's great for lighting and stuff too. You don't want
Sure.
to drag light stands out, but sometimes, yeah, just tape but a little LED to a tree or anything like that. Get some more subtle fill in your shot. Makes a lot of sense.
You can set it on fire if you're freezing to death. That does work. We tried that on our survival
And
episode.
probably smell horrible.
Strange.
I'm sure it
Yeah.
does, but yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. Keep going.
Oh,
Do you get hot pixels when doing long exposures? And if so, how do you deal with them?
yes, I do get them, and as my D3S has been getting older, they're getting a little worse. So you have to spend some time just spot healing them out.
Okay.
I don't-
Just the name of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to work your sensors hard doing this,
Yeah.
especially the extreme long exposures. It's not great for them, but that's the trade-off to doing this type of photography.
I have read that you can get, but I think I was looking at Nikon specifically, that you could get them to map your hot pixels
Yeah,
and like figure
yeah,
it
you
out.
can
Yeah,
set it in and
absolutely.
get them to do
I
that. Yeah.
haven't done that ever.
I mean, like any photography, you have to get your exposures down pat. You have to know what you're doing in the camera. But how much time are you spending on post? Like these photos, I imagine, take maybe a little bit longer than your typical photograph if you're compositing things, changing color balances.
Yeah. So the time it takes varies depending on what's in the photo, what I've done, what my vision is, I guess. I guess I've got my processing sequence down pat, so it's pretty quick to get the basics down. But yeah, if I'm doing a composite or if I'm blending things and layering things, that takes a while longer.
Cool. Very cool.
Well,
Monica, thank you.
Yeah, for coming in.
Thank you,
We
guys.
really appreciate having you on here, and
out
hopefully
her
you guys
workshop.
got some good tips. Check out her website. And again, remember, I mean, we're talking about night photography because that was kind of thing that really fascinated us and something you've been working on recently. But beautiful concert photography, lots of portrait work, couple weddings. Did you
Couple
talk about-
weddings, yeah. some
But
weddings.
yeah, check out Monica's page because she's got many different kinds of photographs on there.
Yeah, we'd love to bring you back too and talk about one of those genres. So yeah,
Actually,
absolutely.
concert
Concert would be
photography would be
fun.
awesome. So if you would like to come back, we would.
stories, but
Oh, there's all the good stories.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's
so
all the-
so apparently traipsing around the mountains in the middle of the night with dangerous animals,
That's
nothing
just- it's
happens.
peaceful. It's
But
lovely.
going to a group of people enjoying a concert,
yeah, I got some
dangerous.
really
yeah,
good
things go
stories.
down.
okay. We will have Monica back. We will talk about concert photography. That'd be awesome. We'd love
Thanks
to
so
have
much
you
for
back.
coming in.
Great.
Thank you.
So much.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, Monica.
And are we out?
No, we're not.
No, we got to talk about.
stuff to
Now
talk
we have
about.
boring stuff to talk about. I mean, that was
What
the
the heck
fascinating
are
stuff.
we
coming
talking
in.
about now? Oh.
I know that was the fascinating stuff. Now we have boring stuff
Yeah,
to talk about.
now we have to talk about gear, everybody.
Yeah, gear. I'm sorry.
I'm excited. This thing came in. I didn't think we were going to get it in time for the live show. Showed up late yesterday.
Yeah, brand new Fuji XE3. So I want to have an argument with Jordan here because that's what we do,
Yep.
right? That's what we do. And when we saw this for the first time, the first mock-up, Jordan's like, that is a sexy camera. That's going to be a really beautiful camera.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, yeah, it's okay. It's all right. But here it is. I don't know. Viewers at home, what do you think?
Yeah,
Fuji
and
XE3.
the images are all out there for the XE3. We have the black one here. I find the silver a little more, it really emphasizes this wonderful little sloped plate on top of it. I do think this is the sexiest camera Fuji has brought out. I would say that. You can clearly disagree with your eyes, as you are now. But I love the X-T20. I think it's one of the most well-rounded mirrorless cameras out there. And basically what we have is a teeny tiny X-T20.
I will give it that. I mean, I think the main benefit that's gonna be apparent here is it's a small, compact camera.
Yeah,
it's
and-
light, it's portable. You know, you've got viewfinder here, but yeah, the X-T20 is so nice looking. It's got more dials on it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think what Fuji has done here, if you looked at the XE2 and the XT10, when those were kind of the competing cameras, the XT10 was certainly the more popular of those options because they were basically the same size, and the XT10 was a little more modern. With this, it's really interesting. So it's quite a bit smaller than the XT20 if you're concerned about size. If you're right-eye dominant, then certainly a rangefinder style design is a more
Right?
comfortable.
Yeah, I suppose so. Right? Get your nose off there and be able to shoot this way for sure.
But they've done some controversial stuff with this.
Okay.
First of all, it's a digital camera without a four-way joystick on it, which is
Yeah.
almost unheard of. So
But you have the little selector switch.
you have the autofocus selector switch, which doubles for it. So at first, it seems pretty disconcerting. Working
Here, I'm
through
gonna
the
try it.
menus and
I'm
everything.
gonna go in the menu and see.
All right, tell me how weird that feels.
It feels like I'm on a PlayStation right now.
Okay. And is that a good thing
Sure,
in
it's
your
fine.
mind? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and that's kind of the thing. Do we really need to have a joypad on the back and a selector switch? I mean, this can really double to do everything. I'm not finding this difficult at all to.
No, I
to
find it
navigate
really easy to work
menus.
through. The big drawback to me is we are throwing away some custom buttons by doing
Sure.
that we had on the XT10. So it's a trade-off. The XT20 is going to be a more customizable body where
We just have one function button on here, quick menu here. Yeah, but yeah.
And you do,
touchscreen.
you do have the touch screen to open up some extra options for that. But this is one of those things where a lot of the time I say, don't make a decision.
Take a
just,
picture of Ron's butt.
don't make a decision just looking at the spec list, or honestly, even watching our videos.
Yeah.
Come in, try it, put it in your hand, try taking some images and see what feels better. 'Cause
Not every photographer on the planet really needs function buttons. There's a lot of people who just don't really want to use them. And this does seem like a really casual, the feeling I'm getting is it's a casual camera. Like
Yes.
this is a small, light, portable, casual camera. But we are going to take it out and shoot it. Most likely not street photography, which you might think that this would be good for, but actually landscape.
Yeah.
We're kind of at that time of year in Alberta. We get about, I think in Alberta, when fall comes, we get about 16 and a half hours to shoot autumn. So we're going to try and catch
It is a
that.
one-day season.
Yeah,
here
it's a
in
one-day
Alberta.
season. And then a strong wind comes and all the leaves fall. But we're going to try and get some large pictures maybe, do
Yep.
some color. Which I know this is not really what this camera's for, but hey, you know what? If you're going to get out there, it's going to be light and portable.
Yeah.
We're going to try it.
I find it really interesting, and this is one other thing. This does do the 4K recording. I'm going to do some tests when we go out and shoot on Monday, see if this is the XT20 or the XT2 implementation
Right.
of that. The 2 was quite a bit nicer image because it was super sampling as opposed to the binning that we saw in the XT20. But it does poke a little more holes in the argument that the X Pro 2, they didn't want to put the 4K in because it was such a small body, but this thing is a hell of a lot smaller
Hell of a lot
and offers
tinier.
4K.
Yeah,
So
maybe
I'm
it'll
glad
just
that we're
overheat
seeing-
and catch on fire. Who
Yeah,
knows?
we'll see if this thing overheats. We'll do some tests on that. But again, X Pro 2 is getting 4K. We're really looking forward to testing that.
So speaking of small and tiny,
We got some.
Ron,
Okay.
what do we have here?
So I got some cinema lenses to test, and we were talking about this back at our Photokina episode, way back. It's a year ago, basically.
Yeah.
Right now, we saw some lenses announced from Takina and Sigma, and they're finally starting to ship now.
Now we've
So
talked a little bit about the Tokinas.
we touched
just
on it
touched
with
on
our
it
Focus by Wire
yeah,
episode.
Focus by Wire episode.
This is doing some really interesting stuff because this is huge coverage on these. It's close to a 45 millimeter
just
coverage on
huge.
it. So basically, unless you're shooting an Alexa 65, you're getting coverage with these lenses. It's great. It takes out a lot of the guesswork that we're seeing with cinema lenses right now because most of them are optimized for Super 35. You can throw this on a red, you can throw it on a full frame. With Sony now bringing out their the Venice, the Vista goes on the Venice, makes perfect
And then
sense.
you're set.
You're getting that coverage on it.
It's
now,
smart, yeah,
The trade-off
absolutely.
is these things are boat anchors.
They're very heavy.
yeah.
Does that translate through camera? I don't know, Ron. Probably does.
Here.
I'm about to find out. Wait, stop shifting it between you guys.
Don't.
Like,
Here.
no.
Okay, there we go. Hey,
Wow.
Ron, over here.
Chris,
Over here.
Chris,
Ron, here.
Chris.
Now make note, Jordan doesn't have his hand thing on, hey?
I thought we were just gonna avoid that conversation, but
Yeah,
We're
he
not
took it
gonna
off
avoid that
because he's like,
conversation.
I'm gonna be a big guy.
Yeah.
I'm totally gonna do this. So
But that
people
means that
stop
Jordan's
asking
hand is getting
questions.
better.
But he is
and-
doing physio.
Yeah, but don't
George-
hurt it.
Jordan
Please
does.
don't hurt your hand.
this is part of that.
There you go.
So, talking about the characteristic of this lens, the Takina is a very classic controlled cinema lens. Throwing these on our bodies, not super contrasty, doesn't have much of a color shift at all. It's worth pointing out if you get these in a set, they're all color matched.
Right.
Where the Sigma is very different.
Yeah, this is the new Sigma, and probably not going to have the same coverage, right? I mean, the Sigma
Yes,
Art
these are
lenses
full
here-
frame coverage
Yeah.
on their primes, where their zooms are primarily just Super 35 coverage. But we love the Sigma Art lenses, and we talked earlier about.
You hurt the chair, I think. when
Yeah,
with
that was just the back cap. Disregard that.
Now here's the
Sorry,
thing.
Brenda.
So this is the new Sigma cinema lens. Yeah, sorry, Ron. I will try to actually hold it here steady for it. I know. Here, it's right there. I'm not going to move it.
You're
I
an
mean,
artist, Ron.
These are T-stop lenses. When we first saw these at Photokina, the gist of it was that these are basically just art primes put into cinema mounts with like cinema focus rings.
Same
and stuff
optical
like that.
formula.
Yeah, same optical formula. But actually playing with this just a little bit that we have, we've kind of noticed that
The breathing seems
breathing's
quite a bit
quite
better
minimal.
better controlled with these than what we were seeing with the art lenses. So they have done some work there. I assumed it was going to be exactly the same as just buying a rehoused Sigma. That doesn't seem to be the case. But one difference with these guys is when you're working with them, these have a lot of character to them. Very contrasty,
Right.
quite warm. A lot of the stuff that I love with the Sigma art lenses.
now again, you know, that might not be something you want for video work.
Yeah,
right?
if I were doing it, you know, blending with a lot of different lenses or like a live studio or something like that, that might not be desirable. But I knew as soon as I hooked this onto the camera, looked at it on the monitor, I was like, damn, that image looks good.
Yeah. It's nice though, we're not losing that much light with the T-stop. I mean, 1.5 from 1.4 on those formulas.
Yeah,
they feel well built.
The light transmission is excellent on these.
Yeah.
Focus rings are beautiful with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And quite small and light. If you look at, you know, it's
compared to
not,
the Tokina, yes.
Yeah, compared to the Tokina, compared to some of the Zeiss CP lenses, which aren't quite as fast, a lot of them. And what's really great is across the line, unless you go to the ultra wides, they are T1.5s.
Yeah.
Where you look at some of the other lines out there, you'll see a lot of aperture fluctuation.
But again, remember, these are going to be specifically for E-mount in this particular case, or for specific mounts anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
That is still the biggest advantage of the Zeiss CPs is it's very easy to change the mount yourself if you want to juggle them around, or you know, it's a rental house or something like that.
And then you're not buying 3 different sets of glass.
But what's great about that is this mount is solid. I'm used to a lot of E-mounts because you can see there's. We'll see if Ron can punch that in.
Oh yeah.
Sweet baby Jesus.
No, your
there's
A7S Mark II mount's gonna rip out before that thing does.
Yeah, a very long flange on these guys.
So
So that's a
while-
lot of empty space there.
While I'm trying to
While
do
Ron's trying to
multiple
focus.
things, okay, so
I'm just gonna do a quick cut.
We're making Ron work today. I like this.
I like it. Yeah.
I am sorry about this, guys. I'm doing like 3 or 4 things simultaneously. Now, I got a hot question. While you guys were bestowing the virtues to everyone, why do these manufacturers price gouge on Cine Optics?
I mean, there's a few reasons for it. I mean, build quality has
There's
to be.
4 reasons for it.
Okay, go.
CINE.
Ah,
That's our reasons for it. Yeah.
I mean, certainly the market's much smaller for these lenses.
Sure,
you know,
absolutely.
We're not going to look at how many people are jumping in for art lenses. You know, every day we've got dozens of those going out. These are much more niche products, so that's a big part of it.
It is a big part of it. Yeah. I mean, obviously, if you're going to sell, you know, to a factor of who knows, 10 times, 20 times the lenses for stills, 30 times the lenses for still photography. Yeah, you're going to make more money there. You can get the prices down. It's more competitive. But yeah, video has always just had a premium on the cost.
Well, and one thing
we are seeing that change. And
Yeah.
there's lenses coming out of China. I mean, the Vedras are very well priced and stuff. Like, we are seeing changes happening in the market. But yeah, it's expensive.
Yeah, and if you're looking for something, you know, when we're looking at these are Japan-made, as opposed to some of the Chinese stuff, Korean stuff that's out there. It is a smaller market. I do think we're going to keep seeing the price of these cinema lenses dropping. I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
You know, we're looking at around the $5,000 Canadian mark for these guys per lens. But if you were to come in here a decade ago and say, I want a cinema lens, no one's going to say $5,000. We're talking
Yeah.
25 grand.
And
that's
even
how
just
much things
feeling
have
them
shifted.
too, you know, even if the optical formulas are similar, doing things like color matching lenses when you are talking about things like Tokina, that takes a lot of work. There's a lot of expense in that. These things are definitely way more solidly built than their still counterparts.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, these things are made to be able to be used day in, day out, on set, banged around, you know, multiple grips using them and stuff, and camera ACs using them. So yeah, it does make sense that they're really strong, well built, and you pay for that.
The other thing too is to make a lens breathing corrected, it's got to be a big lens because essentially every time we change the focus on these guys, the lens does shift slightly, the lens element. So you need basically a zoom lens to offset that as you shift the focus on it. So now your lenses have those extra optics in them, makes them a lot more expensive. And again, photographers don't care. So
And again, the fact that we haven't tested this one out yet, but just from playing with it initially, the fact that that doesn't breathe as much as the still optical version does means that they're not necessarily just art lenses repackaged into a different mount housing. I mean,
which was my initial assessment when they announced them, but it does look like there's some other stuff going on in those. And the Takinas, what's fascinating about them is they are built from scratch, cinema lenses. Takina doesn't have a 35 and a 50 mil 1.4. So you know it's built, you know, they've had to do the entire manufacturing, everything from scratch for the cinema lenses. That's why they're expensive.
Those guys are fascinated by something. But Ron, any other questions that we have there? Anything you'd like to share?
We just had the robot redact a bunch of things. It's quite,
okay.
epic.
Okay.
It got real.
Yeah, it got real. Check that out. Robots on point. Have you used them before? How is the micro contrast?
Yeah, so the Takina is, as I mentioned,
Definitely flatter.
It's definitely
Sharp, but
flatter.
flatter, yeah.
It's a sharp lens, but it's still something. When I brought the footage in, I'm sharpening it slightly.
Right.
The Sigmas, I mean, it feels very much like the art lenses, where
Yeah.
I'm like, don't
Punchy,
touch that
bright,
sharpness.
clean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tons of micro contrast on those guys. Now we haven't tested at higher resolutions. Everything I've done has been 4K, which is a lot for video, but certainly compared to photo, not as much. But
Jordan loves 8K. You know that. He really does.
What
He's
about-
all about the 8K?
We'll have a video coming on that shortly.
What about-
resolution doesn't matter for video. but-
What about chromatic aberration?
Extremely well controlled
Yeah.
on both of them. I haven't had, because the Sigmas just showed up, but I've had a chance to shoot with the Takinas, and I shot aggressively backlit leaves, which is usually as hard as it's going to get with the chromatic aberration test.
Very minimal.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Stunning.
In fact, third-party manufacturers seem to be really good in general on correcting things like chromatic aberration.
Yeah.
When it comes to video, that's important. The less post-processing you have to do, the better.
Yeah, I mean, if we take a photo and there's some chromatic aberration, that's a click in Lightroom to fix it. But
Absolutely.
if you have that issue in video, then God help you, you're spending some time, or you're throwing a lot of money at a post house to fix that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's got to be good, and these are.
Okay. Yeah, keep on going.
Oh, no other questions?
Well, we started talking about Cine
Yeah,
for a
yeah.
little bit, so everybody.
Yeah,
So-
four people want to know something about Cine.
One thing I would love to talk about while we're on the topic of Cine is the. I saw a video the other day in defense of 16 millimeters by I believe it's the Ocean Cinematographies Club, and just a beautiful video talking about a lot of the recent films that are using 16 millimeter, not for budgetary reasons, but for the aesthetic of it. I'll throw the link up there.
You mean soft and grainy?
I mean, they make
I mean
a very,
artsy and grainy?
They make a very compelling argument that 8 millimeter is old-timey.
Right.
35 millimeter is basically indistinguishable from digital now because the film process is so good. 16 millimeter, it seems slightly vintage, but also kind of timeless. And I think it's a
revolution, man.
I think it's a really great argument for it. There's also a great breakdown in that same video on the budget if we were to shoot with rental digital gear compared to shooting 16. And it basically, the price of shooting
Comes out of
film
the wash.
comes out of wash, yeah, which I found really interesting when it was broken down to that level. Any other questions coming in, Ron?
Yeah, have you compared the Cine Glass to something like the Zeiss Milvis or...
Again, we just got the Sigma in. The Zeiss Milvis, those formulas would probably be closer to the art as far as look goes. The Tokina are purpose-built cinema lenses. But now that we have these here, we're definitely going to test them out. I feel another wood nickel's coming on. I'd really like to
I think we're definitely going to have to split a scene between a few different cinema lenses. We can compare in the post house, see how close they can get to matching them. But the Milvis design is the basis for the CP3s that are now available. And that means warm, contrast. That was actually one of the limitations with the Zeiss CPs I found. Is so
too strong.
punchy. Yeah. Matching them with other lenses could sometimes be a bit of a chore for that reason. Art lenses seem quite similar to that. So they both have their strengths. We actually gave this to the SATE instructors, the Takina lenses, to test out. And they came back like, yeah, they're technically great, but there's not a lot of character to them. If you're looking for character, the Zeiss and the Sigma seem to be the way to go.
You got a minute left.
Okay.
Minute left. Okay, any questions, Ron? We'll take more than a minute. Come on.
Is it like M10 worth worth the value for the money?
Yes. Watch
Okay.
our
I
M10
mean-
review.
No, but buy one. I guess the real question is this: do you have the money to buy an M10?
Are Bentleys worth the money?
No, but do you have the money to buy a Bentley?
But if you want a Bentley, you're just
buy
gonna
a Bentley.
It's
Buy
a
it,
fun,
yeah.
The M10 is a fun camera to shoot.
Yeah.
I
There
haven't
you
had
go.
that much fun shooting a camera in a while.
But if you want to talk about from image quality perspective, no.
No.
Wow, shots fired.
You know what? It's
Yikes.
true. From an experiential standpoint, absolutely. It is
Okay.
a totally different way of shooting. I love it. Just start your own YouTube channel for a camera store, and then you can borrow all these cameras and go shoot, and it'll be great.
Yep.
But I would never buy one.
But for twice the price of a D850 that just knocks the pants out of it on image quality. No, it's not. The advantage is the shooting experience, which is a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Do you think we should be renting the Cine lenses?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll talk to my boss.
There you go. And he is gonna resonate a hard no.
Yeah.
Um,
Can we change the city lenses for our show?
yeah, we're gonna shoot next week on Cine lenses.
I
Okay?
love
There you
it.
go. Oh yeah, just
All
to
right.
see. There
Yeah,
you go.
Just
Perfect.
because.
That's a
We'll
great suggestion.
look flatter and duller than we are.
D850 versus A9.
Oh.
Different
Okay,
takes on cameras.
perfect. Great,
Oh.
great answer.
The D850 is a near perfect camera.
The 850 can do everything. The A9 is
Can do everything else.
The D850 is incredible. Yeah.
anything else, guys?
This is just rapid fire, so we don't mess up the
Right.
video.
Yeah, the speed round.
Yeah.
Where Ron's answering all the questions.
Yes. No, go ahead. Have at it. You want to answer this question?
Yeah, give us a question. Give us a question.
No, D850 versus A9. Come on.
Oh, we did answer it. No, the D850 is fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, the A9 really is a specialized tool. It's aimed at silent photography.
Yep.
We love it for journalism. We love it for sports to some degree.
Yep.
Wedding photography would be awesome for. But video wise, Sony and Nikon are doing very different things.
Yeah.
But the D850 gives you an unbelievably high quality sensor. It's a solid body. It can do so many different genres of photography. And when you consider that, it's actually very good for the money too.
If I were to have one still camera, it would probably be the D850. But if I were a wedding shooter or set photographer, and yeah, possibly sports photographer, wildlife, A9 is killer for
And
that.
again, for me, and again, this is a good example. I mean, Monica was on here. SLRs make sense for the kind of photography she's doing.
Yes.
For me, I love the D850. I'm obviously extolling its virtues. I would never buy one because it's mirrorless for me, just based on your style of photography.
Yeah, and me as well.
Yeah.
Wow, it's weird. It's like I answered the question. So, let's see. Your guess for cinema camera of the year: C200 GH5 or the EVA 1 or the dark horse, the Nikon D850.
No, not the D850.
Not the
No, video camera, no way.
I haven't tested an EVA 1 yet. I'm pushing hard to get one of
Yeah.
those. They're all in California, it seems.
And as soon as we can travel to Venice, we're gonna play with one of those. Can't wait.
Yeah. I do. I mean, we love the GH5. I think it's a game changer in the industry, especially at that kind of price point. The
At least-
C200 is a very interesting camera, but it's a little bit bipolar. The EVA 1 looks crazy well-rounded.
EVA 1 does look very
I'm
good.
looking
We're
forward to
excited see
using it.
I think, we're kind of getting to the point where we're going to be doing our best and worst stuff here in a couple months, and I
Yeah.
think it's going to be an interesting year.
Video's going to be very interesting, and photo, honestly.
Yeah.
Cool stuff has happened.
This rapid fire round just spawned a whole bunch of different questions.
Oh, let's do it.
D850 versus Porsche 911.
I don't like Porsche.
Okay,
Yeah.
next.
D850 wins.
A99 Mark II versus D850.
D850 wins.
Yeah.
Okay.
850 wins.
How would you mount a Cine lens to a GH5?
Gaffer tape.
Okay.
No, we use Metabones
Yes.
CL adapters.
Jordan, have you used any anamorphic lenses on the GH5?
I have. I've used some Lomo anamorphics. They'll be in our review
You
coming
gotta
up
see
shortly.
this footage.
And I'm
Coming
going back to shoot more footage on Tuesday with the Lomos.
Yeah.
up.
I want to see, just a side point, we're talking about cinema lenses, it's great to have them, but yeah, let's get some more high-res, affordable anamorphics. This is the time to do it. The keyword is affordable.
Yeah, SLR Magic, I'm not a huge fan of those. The Vedras sounded amazing. I've used one. It looked nice, but they never produced them.
Yeah, we need
so
affordable anamorphic lenses.
If Ryan Avery is watching right now, please give me the prototypes of those anamorphics, and I'll shoot some awesome stuff with them.
Let's see.
More wood nickels.
More wooden nickels.
Is there a GoPro Hero 6 review coming?
I have the box. I'm not sure if we're going to review it. It's already getting beaten to death. Everyone's doing reviews. I just got the box in. I haven't tested it yet, and it would be at least a couple weeks till I could shoot it. So
GoPro is a funny
we'll
company
see.
right now. We'll see.
yeah.
Something exciting, something fun.
If I can get an RXO in the next week, or RX0, then
We
we'll do a
are
shoot-up.
excited to play with the RX0, so yeah, we might have an action thing. But it's gonna get freezing cold. We'll see. Maybe some skiing.
Let's see. Can Jordan, in the near future, explain how normal peeps shoot anamorphic on a GH5?
Sure.
Yes,
Okay,
it
cool.
will happen.
Let's see, what else?
Why are
First you-
photographers shooting anamorphic? That'd be
First,
so
you
cool
take a
to
loan out for
photos.
$80,000.
Yeah.
A9 versus RX10 Mark IV.
I really want to test the RX-10
Yeah,
and the autofocus is supposed to be quite similar. If you're a dad, like we see this all the time, a mom or a dad who's like,
Yeah.
my kids are shooting sports in low light. That's one of the most difficult things. Super zooms can't do it because they don't have the sensor size
Exactly.
or the autofocus.
I mean, the RX 100 Mark V came out, and I mean, it's a similar kind of idea,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you're like, yeah, but it's a 3x zoom, which maybe doesn't support needing that fast focusing or that fast shooting.
This
so
makes a ton
this
of
makes
sense.
a ton of sense.
This
yeah.
is the best. Parents, it's expensive, but if you're a parent shooting your kids playing
Yeah.
sports,
Good video quality, great stills.
This
1-inch
is-
sensors are plenty for most people. I like the image quality out of them.
Yeah.
Good lenses. Yeah.
and no one wants to talk to the parent who's got a 400mm 2.8 lens.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you've got an RX-10 IV, you're going to look fairly normal.
Yeah.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Where are these arbitrary numbers coming from?
I don't know.
All right.
No, we're over time already.
Okay.
It's just we're changing how long before the sync goes wonky
Okay.
after it's posted.
Oh, I see. I think we're good. I think
Yeah,
we're
we're
good.
good.
Yeah, I
Thanks,
mean, I think
everybody,
we've
for
talked about
checking in.
everything. So again, thank you to Monika for being on the show. That was
Absolutely.
fantastic.
We'll have her
And,
back. Any other questions for her too? Check her out. We'll have the links to
yeah,
her Twitter,
go
her
look at the
Instagram,
photography,
her
check
website.
out our website.
Yeah.
Beautiful night photography stuff. Otherwise, yeah, any other questions and comments, we will answer them after the fact. But from us here on this new Saturday morning,
Thank you much.
Thank you for
thank you
checking
very
in.
much.
We'll see you soon.
We'll see you soon.